If someone tells you they know how AI works and how they're using it in the classroom, they're lying to you. They're not telling you the truth because none of us know, right? Because the students themselves don't know how this works and what that means for them as consumers of information and as citizens. And also now it comes down to, we just submitted a grant and we have to put a disclaimer saying, yes, we used AI for the grant, right? So there's the ethical component of that as well. And when you're writing a paper, how much of it is you and how much is AI? So you got to learn how that process works. And so we're trying to provide all the resources for our students and for faculty to do that. Because faculty are using AI. There's a lot of stuff you don't know. And it's like any type of information literacy, Dr. Joseph, because you want to know if it's valid and if it's reliable. And that's what we have to think about.
Welcome to the table. You're tuned into the Academic Boardroom with Dr. J and Dr. E. Pull up a chair. Higher learning, higher stakes.
Welcome back to the Academic Boardroom, where we sit down with power brokers shaping the future of education. I'm your host, Dr. Eli Joseph, and today we have a special guest with us by the name of Dr. Anand Marri, who serves as the Provost and Executive Vice President for the Academic Affairs at Ball State University. At Ball State University, he is the Chief Academic Officer, and he oversees the planning, development, implementation, assessment, and enhancement of academic programs, policies, and procedures across the university. Before he was appointed provost, Dr. Marri served as Dean of Ball State's Teachers College. Before joining Ball State, Dr. Marri led the Margaret Warner Graduate School of Education and Human Development at the University of Rochester. He also served 15 years as professor at Columbia University's Teachers College. Dr. Marri, welcome to the boardroom.
I appreciate it. I really appreciate you having me here, Dr. Joseph. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you so much. It's been a while. We connected nearly 9 years ago in the summer of 2017, if I remember correctly, and we were doing the WISE financial education amongst teachers.
Right, in partnership with the Cowan Financial Literacy Program at Teachers College Columbia. So I remember you were an active participant then, and I see that your trajectory has continued upward.
Yes, it's been a while. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate you for joining on board. I just want to jump right in and ask you, this question here. As far as, your experience, you have a vast experience, a variety of experience from the Ivy League to a private institution to a public institution, or one of the premier public institutions at Ball State. I wanted to ask, is there sort of a difference in the way that you have to approach your objectives as either the dean or the provost or professor, or is it pretty much the same focus all throughout?
Well, it's the focus in all the institutions is still the focus on students, right? Number one goal is student success. That cuts across all the institutions I've worked at. The difference here at Indiana is in Ball State University is we are responsible for the taxpayers of Indiana and the public of Indiana. So that's really important, right? So we want to serve our state well. And at Columbia, Rochester, ours is more serving our clients who were the students who are paying tuition and all that. But here we're responsible for the greater good of Indiana. And so that's the big difference between a private school and a public school. But still, regardless, and the way we serve it is still serving the students. And we want to make sure that's there. We make a positive impact on not only the students, but also the regional and the state government, the state of Indiana. So for example, Ball State, we are the leading institution, one of the 3 leading institutions in Indiana, and we want to make sure that we turn out folks that are going to come to Indiana, that come to Ball State, that are going to stay in Indiana and contribute to Indiana's economy.
That's perfect. Now, normally as a professor, as a faculty, I normally get emails and memorandums from the upper heads, the presidents and the provosts, right? And normally you have the president and then you have the provost, so you're pretty much second in line. As far as the approach, I know there's a big difference between being a dean and being a provost. Can you walk us through as far as the differences, when you were serving as the dean here at Ball State and then the provost?
Sure. So I'll start with my professor. Professor, you're happy if 50 people read your article, right? And you're teaching your classes, it's great. And then you get to be an associate dean or dean, and the dean is you're responsible for that little section of the whole town, which is you're responsible for all the students there, the faculty there, the financial well-being. And then for as a provost, you're responsible for the whole town. And you are making sure that that town does well in terms of making sure the plumbing's working, make sure the trains are running on time. That's what you're responsible for. Mostly it's an internal focus because you're focusing on the 1,200 students, I'm sorry, 1,200 faculty that I'm responsible for, plus the 20 plus thousand students that are here. And then that's what you're doing. You want to make sure that's all taken care of because the president is concerned about the town, but he's also concerned about the state and the nation, right? Because he wants to make sure that the town does well. So he needs state resources and then the national resources to do that. And either funding publicly or privately. So that's the way I think about it. You're responsible for a neighborhood if you're a dean, but you're responsible for the whole town. I feel like I'm like Mom Donnie, or but
Eh, I mean, well, yeah, I like that analogy. Mamdani, or I'll say, the governor, or well, yeah, I like that. I
governor is
like.
responsible for the whole state.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. You got it. As far as technology, I know that this is a big. It's not an issue, but it's one of the big topics that we normally talk about in education. Do you feel as though there is something to be worried about as far as how students are learning and how teachers or professors are teaching, or do you think it's something that we need to just, basically just adapt with what's going on in our technological ecosystem?
Sure. It's the answer is both. So it's I mean, you talk about Larry Cuban at Stanford wrote a book called How Teachers Taught, and he talks about the first technology, and the first technology that was in the classroom that changed everything was blackboards, right? And then you move to radio, and then you move to television, and then when our youth is the internet, right? And now it's artificial intelligence. So there's no way around it. Those are all tools, and each time teachers, professors, workers, employees all have to adopt to that technology, right? And the way it's happening is since the internet and to AI, is we are no longer the holders of information, right? Because the student can look up that information within a second, right? Or this recording can look it up in a second. So now we have to figure out is how to manage that information and how to learn from that information, right? So we are no longer um, sages on the stage, but rather more of a facilitator. And it doesn't still change the point of education. The point of an education is how to think critically, how to write, how to read, how to speak well, and then the last one is how to make friends. And that's really important. And so that making friends means you're a good citizen of the public you serve. And those things haven't changed. And so now we just have to say is when all the information that you ever want to teach in your class like a personal finance class or an econ class.
Mhm.
Still can look it up and they learn it, but it's then you want to make sure that information is correct. And a lot AI still continues to hallucinate. And then second is how do you want to help students to master that themselves? How to be critical thinkers when you don't have to really do anything, right? Because you can type in a prompt and it'll answer it for you, but you're not really thinking. And a lot of our students here, and I know at Columbia, Rochester as well, they want to know is how do you still continue to think and learn the skill set because employers want you to be able to master the technology, but they also want you to how to use it, right? So you don't necessarily know how to do if you go into investment banking, you don't really know you don't need to learn how to do a deck. So AI can do the PowerPoint for you, but you want to be able to know what the content of that is and whether that's valid and whether that information is important.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting because you you do need a textbook, sort of as a reference point, but you don't really need to teach or learn from a textbook. I enjoy when I enjoy teaching is what I enjoy teaching about is when it comes to whether it's economics, information systems, research process and methods, it's basically teaching students how to build a plane while we're flying it. Do you believe in that similar philosophy of, all
Yeah.
right, you have a textbook, but you also need to know how to build a plane, know how, the different materials that we need, the different what goes on in this system,
Yeah,
how to fly it.
and which order, right? You got to figure out which order. Which do you put first? You obviously you're not putting on the wheels first, right? You got to think about that. So that all is how to use it at the same time. And if someone tells you they know how AI works and how they're using it in the classroom, they're lying to you. They're not telling you the truth because none of us know, right? Because the students themselves don't know how this works and what that means for them in the as consumers of information and as was citizens. And also now it comes down to we just submitted a grant and we have to put a disclaimer saying yes, we used AI for the grant, right? So there's the ethical component of that as well. And when you're writing a paper, how much of it is you and how much is AI? So you got to learn how that process works. And so we're trying to provide all the resources for our students and for faculty to do that. Because faculty are using AI in the classroom, right? We're using it. We're using it for everything. So you have to make sure that there's a lot of stuff you don't know, um, right? And then make sure the kids understand that they use the ones that are behind firewalls so that the information is protected. Like we have our own ball state systems or, whatever it is. I'm sure at NYU is the same thing, right? You don't want, so that's what we have to get those skill sets. And it's like any type of information literacy, Dr. Joseph, because you want to know if it's valid and if it's reliable. And that's what we have to think about.
Okay, that's interesting. As far as, and I know we have policies here, and sometimes in education, the policies lag months behind, the issues. Do you feel as though that lag process between students using AI to help them out with assignments or exams, and now us implementing policies in our syllabus, do you think that lag time is warranted, or do you think that lag time it needs to be shortened a bit so that way we can catch up with the policies adapting to what the students or what we are experiencing in our day-to-day lives?
Without a doubt, there's never been a time where the students are not been ahead of us. The students are always continuing ahead of us. And now we have to try to figure out is how to adjust as best we can. Because the internet, right? Kids were looking up stuff on Google to be able to in class. I remember teaching and be like, well, they're like, no, that formula is wrong because Google says the formula is this is a formula. And be like, okay, I made an error. So now we just got to figure out how to use it. And the kids and our students want information on how to use it ethically. And so we at Ball State, I mean, we are probably 2 or 3 months behind the students. And that's the fastest I've ever seen it because they're coming up with different ways to do it. And then the different AI engines, the different AI platforms, and it also matters within the field, right? Because those students that are in computer science use AI differently than those of us in econ or in the School of Ed or else or even in our College of Fine Arts. If AI is going to help you write a play or write a script, how does that work? Who owns authorship? All those things. And so it also now has to be a broader policy, but also very specific within the disciplines, and that takes a little bit of time. But I think people are all across the country are trying to scramble to get there.
Great. Now, as far as grants, research, and I know you have a great background in terms of research grants.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's over. We're talking about over 15 million. Yeah. The process. Can you walk us through like the traditional process of submitting a grant? Making sure you provide the right the proprietary information or right information needed to secure the grant and fulfill the research process.
So now with AI and the way it works, it's pretty simple. So um, Google had an AI tool where you put in your CV and you describe what you were trying to do, and you put it in, and Google will give you all the grants that you're eligible for. Can you believe that?
Yeah, it's
So
crazy.
think about the Office of Sponsored Programs, right? They're like their job is to try to connect you. So they'll give you private and public foundations that will let you apply for the grant. And then secondly, they will help you write the letter of intent based on your background, what you've done, so it's still based on what you've done. Like you got to have you got to have the information and your accomplishments there, and you also have to have the idea of what you're trying to do, and they will help you write the letter of intent. That's crazy, right? And then so that way, so that's how it's changed a lot. Now you don't have to spend. I mean, it would be great to talk to the folks in the private foundation world and say, "Hey, here's the pitch, how I want to do it," but it will help you do that. But I don't know. But you also have to think about if you're doing that, then 5 other people are doing the same thing. So that's why you got to double, triple, quadruple check that everything you're saying is true. And then what is still distinguishing you in the marketplace? What is your value add? What's your value as a scholar, as a future, grantee? Those are things you got to think about. And how good are those ideas?
Mhm.
The ideas still matter. And, when I worked at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, the head of the Fed, Bill Dudley, one of the best leaders I ever had, and he says, best idea wins. And that's it. You still have to have the best idea possible.
And now with AI technology, pretty much everyone have ideas. Everyone have good ideas.
Right.
And I can piggyback off of what you said as far as the best idea wins. Also, the best ideas that can be in effect soon, and that can actually be executed wins as well, because pretty much everyone have ideas. Everyone have ideas for new technology, the utility behind it. But if you can actually put forth the effort and the resources to pull this off, then
Yeah.
essentially, you win that ball game as well. It's so interesting because we oftentimes hear people that may not be in the higher education space, and they are very critical with the research that is being published,
Okay.
the papers, right? They say, oh, what's the point of us writing papers and publishing papers when no one will read it? I want to know your take on that notion of no one will read the papers from the outside or from the external, environment of people that may be skeptical of what it is that we're doing as scientists and researchers.
So I respectfully disagree because the model AI is built on language models, large language models, right? So you are contributing to what AI is learning, right? So for example, I'll give you an example. If no one updates their websites, AI doesn't have the data to be able to update it,
Mm.
right? So if the baseline, the basic element input is not there, how is the language model going to learn? So the more you publish, you're actually contributing to the field, and you're also contributing to how everyone learns. So that's where I disagree with people that are critical of it, because the engines like Claude and Gemini, all those tools can't have they can't make stuff up without the data, and your articles and your publications are that data.
Interesting. That's true. Yeah, that is true. You can't update. You can't really update the models. You can't really
Yeah.
add forth information, and especially when it comes to neural networks, you need the input. You need to continuously improve and upgrade.
And
Without that information to input, you can't really get an output in which we will understand the world as it is.
exactly. So yeah, if people stop contributing, if people stop writing books and so forth, then it becomes static. So and now, what's AI going to learn from if they don't, right? Because it's constantly learning from what other people are contributing to the space.
I also want to shift a little bit on in this AI topic here.
Sure.
Um, Now we have AI. We know that technology is always evolving. It has been evolving for years and even decades from now. I was wondering, do you feel concerned for students who may be graduating or they're about to graduate soon, and now they're faced with this dilemma of, okay, what should I do now, or how should I apply? Do you feel concerned, or do you feel as though it's something that here at Ball State, you feel as though the students are well equipped to not only graduate but be a valuable asset in either in an organization or an organization that they want to start their own, or even in an institution? Do you feel as though the students at Ball State are well equipped for what's to come?
Yeah, I think also I do think that entry jobs or entry level of jobs, depending on the field, are becoming more competitive. And so that's without a doubt. But I think the value add is, do you know the tool? And that's what we're trying to get. Do you understand the tools, how that works, and how that works within the field you're going into? So how can you use the tools in banking? How can you use it in, um, either consumer banking, retail banking, whatever, or how does it work within healthcare? How does it work with communication? So using the tools there. Second is demonstrating that you have critical thinking skills. And that's what we have here. We have students that are really smart and they're thinking about how to approach something from multiple and competing viewpoints. And then the third area is that the value is how can they build relationships, right? So if you have experts on AI, that's great. And everyone's siloed, Dr. Joseph, what are you going to do? You're not going to get anything done. And most projects now are cooperative projects. So whatever it is, whether you're launching a new product, whether you are trying to solve a problem, it has to be done through the collective wisdom of crowds. And if you can you can demonstrate that you can do critical thinking and that you could work well with others, I think that's where you will stand out in the marketplace.
It's interesting. When I look at students, and I get emails all the time. I would get the, "Hey, Professor Joseph, I appreciate you, for teaching us at this class, right? And I'm about to graduate, but I need to. Is there any opportunities that you have, or I'm looking to work in finance. I'm looking to work in consulting.
Yeah.
Is there anything that I need?" And I always ask myself, when I was a student, I had a different way of thinking. I had a different dilemma to face when I was a student. Whether it's 10 years ago, I wasn't worried about artificial intelligence as
Right.
students are today. Um, do you think that universities all across the United States are doing a good job of providing the necessary resources, or they try to provide the necessary resources for their students to succeed? Because we always hear the numbers. We always hear the numbers of students are, the gap is shrinking in between unemployment between those who are formally educated and those who are not. Do you think, on a macro level, and when you look at the numbers on a macro level beyond Ball State and here in Indiana, do you think there is a connection in between what's being taught at school and what's being applied and transferred on, when the students graduate?
Yes, I do think that, whatever you hear about pieces about the gap, shortening between high school graduates and college graduates, I don't believe that's to be true. I think the wage gap will continue to be existing. I mean, it's anywhere between, the difference is probably between 20 to $40,000 a year over your lifetime. Between a college graduate and high school graduate. And then the New York Fed, the latest research still continues to show that's what that continues to happen. So that's true. The second thing is when you're going into college, and the value add of college is the idea of critical thinking. And I think that's where we have to most colleges, if not all colleges, promote students to be able to work with competing and multiple viewpoints, right? Whether they're in the classroom, whether they're in a social setting. I think that's the big difference is the critical thinking. And then the writing and the reading skills and the speaking skills, those matter. And that comes through practice, right? In your classes, Professor Joseph, you know that the writing improves the more they do it, right? And so this is an opportunity for our students, and I think colleges and universities do it well, is to help those fundamental skills, how to practice better, speak better, how to write better, all those things. I think that's still a very strong value add for a post-secondary credential to do that. And and with blue collar jobs that they're saying, the skilled trades, that they're drying up as well. Right? And if you saw that, you would see the latest research shows that too. There was in the Wall Street Journal last week about most of the blue collar jobs or skilled trades jobs are not as many applicants. There are not as many openings.
Interesting. And yet you see, I see in New York, you see tons of infrastructure, you see tons of buildings being built and renovated. And it's so interesting to see that, or to hear that, the skills jobs here in construction is drying up.
Right.
Um,
But it
so
depends on the locations too, right? But it's like, but then if you want the job in New York, you got to live in New York and you got to pay New York prices.
it's not cheap either.
If it's not cheap, right? So, but in other areas, it's less opportunities.
I wanted to spend time talking about the future, right? And I know, when it comes to projections, it's tough. It's tough to understand and try to get a grasp of what might happen 5 years, even 1 year, or even 1 month from now.
Right.
But when you look at the future, and you look at what might happen, let's say by 2030, what are, I'll say, 3 to 5 skills that students and faculty should develop or cultivate in order for the society to propel forward?
Got it. So that's good. So these are not going to be mind blowing, Dr. Joseph.
No, it's okay.
So information literacy, that's, we know that librarians have been teaching that since we were in kindergarten, right? That's number one. Number two is critical thinking. And critical thinking means that you're able to look at multiple pieces of information, decide if the source is true, and make an argument based on that. So that's critical thinking is still going to be essential for any job you do. The next one is going to be about building relationships. You have to be able to build relationships. Without building relationships, I mean, you might as well be a robot, right? And so that's there. And then simple numeracy and literacy. Numeracy, you got to learn how to work with quantitatively, and then literacy means that you're able to read and speak well and write well. Those are the things. They're basic stuff that we learned in elementary school, and it's still the same.
Beyond the traditional matriculation of 4-year degree, master's degrees, doctorates, do you believe that, and I talked about this with Dean Angie a couple weeks ago,
Okay.
about microdosing or providing a sort of subscriber type of model, learning model for
Yeah.
students? Do you think that's a effective way of providing an alternative way of teaching students, whether it's on campus through matriculated programs, or beyond online, or doing an extension school?
Without a doubt, I think lifetime learning is going to be the that's going to be the basis. We need to upskill all the time. And we've invested in lifetime learning, and I think everyone else is investing in lifetime learning. So it's like, so how do I learn this new AI tool? So you take a course, you take a 2-week course, whatever, and I think that's where the what'd you say, a subscription model where you can come and take those. That, I think that's the way to go, because we are doing it to support all of East Central Indiana. But I'm sure now you could do it online, and they could come take the course. Need to. You need to upskill no matter what. So, like, I had to take a tutorial on how to use AI, right? Or even just the online tutorial like Grammarly, Dr. Joseph. I subscribe to Grammarly. It helped, not the AI one, but it helps me write, and that's the ongoing skills that you need to learn. If you have to have an inquiry mindset, and the inquiry mindset is supported by having some type of lifetime learning.
I want to shift a little bit, and I know we may not have enough time to shift a little bit, but I
Right.
wanted to talk about representation and how students and faculty are representing the university. Do you think that representation, whether, let's say, if I were to teach at Ball State, me saying something online or me saying something on the internet, um, it it does that, as far as what I say, does that affect how we learn or how we operate, or as far as the what we say and what we do? Do you think that's more so of a good representation in terms of how we should operate as representatives at Ball State, or do you think our opinions or our commentary is strictly our own once we step out of the university?
No, so that this is a matter for the courts, and it's becoming very gray. And the way I think about it is, as the, as an administrator, what I say, no matter, it's not what my intent is, but how it's perceived. And it's unfortunate because with social media, that's how it works. But in the university, the only person that's allowed to speak on behalf of the university here is the president or the board of trustees, right? So that's how it's so, and I make it very clear in the classroom, and it's really important, Dr. Joseph, is if you are speaking on the subject that you are an expert in, and that's in your class, right? So if it's a personal finance class, whatever it is, and it's generally accepted by peers, you should have that same academic freedom to work in that you can talk about those things. But with social media and everything else, I am a representative of Ball State. So if I make stuff out, and especially a public school, supported by the taxpayers of Indiana, I have to be very cognizant of what I say, and I should be, because you're using public money, right? And remember, you're not speaking for one person. You're talking about the 6 million citizens of Indiana. And so I have to be very cognizant of that. But within the subject matter that I am an expert in, within the context of the classroom, and I can talk about communism, I can talk about liberalism, I can talk about socialism, all those things, and I can have my opinions based on the scholarship, and that's okay. But outside of my lane, I'm held to a different standard.
Totally understand. As far as one advice that I want you to share, one advice that you wish you had when you've graduated with your PhD and became a doctor. What is the main advice that you would tell yourself at the minute you graduated, based on your experience?
It's funny because you get to the pinnacle of your terminal degree, and then what I've learned is you can't stop learning. You have to continue to learn and push yourself into new areas that you don't know. And so, and I think I have an inquiry mindset. I always question as why. And so that's really important for success in academia or in elsewhere. And some people are like, well, I'm done. This is and that's it. And I'm like, no, you got to learn new skill sets. You got to learn how to work well with other people. That's the really important part, is the inquiry mindset pays off in the long run.
And I heard something too. I heard that, and I'm not sure if I think you may agree or you may disagree, but I heard that your doctoral thesis or your doctoral dissertation is the worst piece of writing that you will ever write
Yeah.
as
That's
as a
public,
researcher.
and it's public. Yeah. Writing, because even then, when I remember when I got my first article out, and I was like, oh my, and I had to go back to the dissertation to get the stuff out. I was like, oh my God, I wrote that. How did that committee pass me? So
And
true.
now, and even then, you can argue that even your first article, the first paper that you put out,
Yeah.
it's different from how you
What I
would
would say
approach
is-
writing now.
Exactly.
Totally different.
I would probably say it in half the words.
Wow. That's interesting. I really appreciate you for joining me, Dr. Marri. It's been a pleasure joining the boardroom. I really appreciate the work that you're doing. Keep going. Congratulations on all your success as well. And we look forward to having more conversations moving forward as well.
Well, thank you so much for having me as a guest, Dr. Joseph, and thank you for reaching out to me. I'm glad you're doing well and happy to contribute anytime. And I really appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marri.
All right, take care now.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. It's the boardroom, and we are logging out right now.
Mind of a scholar and a business-minded soul. We at the academic boardroom, yeah, we keeping it 100. If you're looking for the truth, well, you finally found it. Take a seat at the head, let the dialogue flow. It's the masterclass vibe.